Hey everybody, today I'm talking through my top 10 chilled filler games. Now I did make a sister video to this one called my top 10 chilled board games. Not like those games were particularly long, but these games are shorter again and generally come in smaller boxes. So these games that I just enjoy the process of, I find them low stakes and just relaxing to play. So before I get started on these 10 games with some honourable mentions, I'll give a shout out to the show's sponsor, KIENDA.co.uk, who are my go-to online retailer, and if you use the link in the show notes or the QR code, then you can get 5% off your first order. At number 10, I have King Domino. So this is an immensely popular family weight style game where you're placing these domino-shaped tiles to build this little kind of 5x5 grid of trying to get these terrain types within those tiles in blocks together and combine them with these multipliers to give you some more points. So very simple process, pretty obvious what you need to do, but the drafting process is also interesting where, generally speaking, if you take the better tiles in one round, you'll be taking the weaker tiles in the subsequent round, or at least you'll get last choice to take the tile that you exactly want. Now, the ease of the rules, but with that little restriction of keeping it in the confines of that small grid, just makes it interesting enough. And this is a game I'd never really turn down. I find it very charming, very easy to play, and I just enjoy it. So that is King Domino at number 10. At number 9, I have Rustling Leaves, which in my opinion is one of the most underrated and overlooked roll and write games out there. So this one has this unique concept where you'll be rolling a pair of dice, and those dice will show you or determine how big of a grid you'll have to section off on your player sheet. So you have a player sheet with a ton of these different icons on them. All these icons will link to a separate scoring condition, and on your turn again you'll square off what the dice tells you to square off, tick something off within that square, and then score the corresponding amount of points. So the sheet quickly gets gobbled up, especially if you roll those higher numbers. And I even like the fact that this game comes with 4 different booklets for replayability and variability. So this is one I've played a lot of over the years. I've not even slightly tired of it. It's a go-to game for me when it comes to the filler side of things. And it's just a great little 20-minute relaxing experience where you're just trying to do the best that you can do without having any influence over your opponent. I love this one. That is Rustling Leaves at number 9. At number 8, I have Fuji Flush, which is a card shedding game where you're trying to get rid of your cards as quickly as possible. And all you're doing is you're playing a card trying to trump the basically the value that was last played. So if someone plays a 3, then you can play a 4. But the twist on this one is that if you play subsequent numbers of the same type, then those values will add up together. So say if I played an 11 card, then the next 5 players all played, I don't know, a 3 card each. All those 3s would add up to trump the 11 card. So the high cards are really valuable, of course, and useful because you can use them to trump anybody. But the low cards are great because normally you can conspire with the other players to try and overthrow those higher valued cards. It has this slight hint of, semi-cooperative nature of it, where, if you're falling behind or if somebody is running ahead too far, then you can work with the other players to try and catch up and get rid of those cards from your hand through that combining mechanism. It's a lot of fun. It does require the higher player counts to really get the most from this game, and that's one of the sad reasons I don't get to play it as much as I'd like to. But when I have played it, it's been an absolute blast. And again, the stakes feel so low in this one, and it just feels like a ruckus and fun time. So that is Fuji Flush at number 8. At number 7, I have Vegetable Stock, which must be the lightest commodity speculation game that I've ever played, where all you're doing is you're drafting these vegetable cards and adding them into your scoring tableau, but the one remaining card that isn't drafted by the players will manipulate the stock market, making them kind of climb in price, but if it climbs too high, then it will crash right back to the bottom and make each of those vegetables that you've collected worth very little or nothing even. And you're going to keep going through that process until you've played a fixed amount of rounds and then correspond the end game market with the cards that you've collected. That's all the game entails. Again, there's not that much control you can have, but there are a few little things you can do just to make sure that you try and keep your vegetables topped up and as valuable as possible. But it just feels so fast and breezy and relaxing. But that mixed with the commodity speculation, which you normally only see with heavier, more involved economical Euro games, you know, the lighter game mixed with that is just a kind of a fresh experience really, and it's just a quintessential and boiled down version of an economic game that I think is so much fun. So that is Vegetable Stock at number 7. At number 6, I have Rome in a Day. Now, this is a simple tile placement game where you are simply trying to get these different colours of terrain, match them with these same coloured buildings, and score multipliers. So, you know, each connecting green tile you have with green buildings will multiply with each other. So if you have 5 green tiles with 2 green buildings, that'll be 10 points essentially. But the twist on this game is that you are using an I split you choose mechanism to divide those tiles out. So every round you're going to have, I think it's 5 tiles. You'll divide them up however you see fit, and your opponent will choose which lot they want before you get the remaining one. So you can't be too greedy and get what you want, because your opponent will simply choose that one. But you cannot, you know, be too generous to your opponent either, because they're going to beat you on scoring. But that mixed with the simple tile placement, it just works well. Again, the game isn't too restrictive, so even if you don't get exactly what you want, you can quite easily optimize things out. The gem collection is also very important, so if you are constantly taking the smaller lots, you'll get these bonus gems, which will give you some bonus points as well, and which slightly takes the edge and pressure off the the division part of the game. Because that, for me, is actually a mechanism that lends itself to quite high stakes and high pressure games. You know, you think of other games that have done it, like Hanamikoji or games like Marabunta. For some reason, this game uses that same mechanism, but it feels so much more light-hearted and so much more breezy than those aforementioned games. But a lovely family weight one, so quick as well. This game is over before it even begins, and I just love it. So that is Rome in a Day at number 6. At number 5, I have Scout, which is another immensely popular card shedding game. In this one, you are trying to create these runs of cards and have the basically strongest display of cards played in front of the players. And on your turn, all you can do is you can either try and beat the last displayed run of cards, or you can pick up one of these cards from the centre and add it into your hand. Now, the twist in this game is that you can never rearrange the cards in your hand, so they'll always stay in a fixed order unless you pick one up and put it wherever you like. And as you can imagine, as the game progresses, these cards in your hand are constantly getting bolstered, getting stronger and stronger, and the shows of strength are getting stronger and stronger as the game goes on. This is one of those games that is very easy in the way that it works. Well, all you're doing is making one of 2 choices: either pick up a card or you are going to be playing a display. But it somehow manages to make you feel smarter than you probably are, because it just feels good when you're constantly building and getting stronger and stronger hands. And it definitely strikes that perfect balance of being relaxing but clever enough to keep you engaged, and that back and forth flow of this game is truly wonderful, and definitely a great example of a game that just strikes that perfect balance of being so widely accessible and inviting to so many different players. So that is Scout at number 5. At number 4, I have Patchwork. Now, this is one of my most played games of all time, which is probably a key reason as to why it's on this list, just through sheer familiarity and almost coziness at this point. But this is a 2-player only polyomino style game where you're trying to fill up your board as much as possible, because every empty space is going to be worth negative points. But it's the extra little wrinkles and nuance that makes this game so much better than a lot of the other polyomino games, because this game has a slight economic edge to it, where every tile you take will be worth a certain amount of time, and as long as you are behind in the time spent, you'll keep on taking turns. But what I love is this kind of money management system, where every tile you take will not only have a cost, but it'll also reimburse you certain amounts of buttons, which is your currency, as the game goes on and as you meet certain thresholds on this time track. So you can go for kind of quick, cheap grabs, or you can build this kind of infrastructure or engine on your player board where you'll know you'll have a constant flow of buttons. And those mechanisms kind of butting heads with the optimization puzzle and trying to place everything perfectly, it's just a great little conundrum to overcome. I don't really care about what my opponent does. Yes, there's a little bit of turn angst in terms of them grabbing tiles that you want, but I think, again, that sheer familiarity and the simplicity but the cleverness of the mechanisms make it a perfect fit for a list like this. So that is Patchwork. At number 3, I have Coloretto, which has been a go-to filler game for me for such a long time now. This is a little push your luck set collection style game where you're trying to collect these different colours of chameleons through this lovely drafting system where on your turn you can either add a chameleon card to a column or you can take a column. And the reason why that's interesting is because only 3 of your chameleons, your best sets of chameleons, will score you points. And anything above that will score you negative points. So you want to be very carefully managing what you are taking and not making it obvious about what you're going for. Because, of course, if you keep on boosting a particular column of cards with the exact chameleons that you like, when it comes to your opponent's turn, they're going to place a card that they know that you do not want in order to try and sabotage your scoring. And although that might sound a little bit take-that-ish and a little bit more confrontational than some of these other games, it feels toothless in its approach. It definitely doesn't feel mean in any way, and it's just about trying to know when to take and know when to play or push your luck a little bit further. Another game with a great tempo, a great flow to it, just those 2 key decisions: play a card or take a column. And it's an evergreen in my opinion. This has been in my collection for so many years now, and it's still amongst the best filler games that I have ever played. That is Coloretto. At number 2, I have Get On Board. Now, this is a flip and write style game where you're trying to make this bus route on this communal board, trying to pick up passengers and drop them off to their desired locations, gaining points as you do so in different ways. Now, I think what makes this game a good fit for this list is that you can try and optimize it and game it as much as possible, but ultimately a lot of the control is out of your hands because you are drawing cards from this deck which will show the exact kind of orientation of road that you can lay. So you can kind of just do your best with what you are provided. And I think for me that takes a lot of the edge off the game. It makes it feel a lot more lighthearted. And sometimes you'll have great games of this, sometimes you'll just have complete ones that could be written off without scoring much at all. And a lot of the times that isn't really your fault. But there is some mitigation tools in terms of being able to switch kind of right angles to straight lines, but gaining negative points the more you use those mechanisms. Now, the game is actually quite tight in terms of the board space, but because you're kind of just chugging along at your own pace, trying to avoid the other players, if desirably, because if you ever bump into another player, you actually gain kind of traffic points, which is more negative points. So you're normally trying to hide in the corner and just do your own thing. But again, this game is so charming. It's so breezy. It's relaxing. Again, you're not really going to be too worried about doing everything as optimally as possible. It can be a little bit frustrating if you've picked up loads of passengers and you cannot make it to your desired location. But normally there's a trade-off when it comes to that. If you're not doing one thing, you're doing another. And it only takes around 20 minutes to play anyway. And I think the artwork and the flow of the game all comes together so harmoniously that it's just an absolute joy. So that is Get On Board at number 2. And finally, at number 1, I have Floriferous. So Floriferous is a part of the Pencil First series of set collection games, and it's my favourite of the bunch actually, despite being very relaxing and chilled out. So it's another set collection style game where you are trying to collect these different flowers and garden statues and things to try to score as many points as you can. You're scoring points based on these public objectives, private objectives that you're collecting, having majorities of certain cards, and so on. I love the drafting system in this game, as each round there's going to be a display of cards and you're going to be going through these cards from left to right or right to left, column by column. And if you take the cards towards the top of the column, it means you're going to get priority on the next column. So you can kind of dive deeper, sometimes get better cards to do so, but sacrifice going earlier in the next round. And it's cool that all of these private objectives that you're collecting are right at the bottom of each column as well. So if you want a new scoring criteria card, then you're going to go last in the next turn. But despite that sounding like there's some turn angst, and there is, What's good about this game and what makes it a good fit for this list is that there's always a compromise, there's always a plan B. You know, even if you didn't get the card that you wanted as a priority, you might be able to add that card that you got towards one of those majorities or towards that public objectives and so on. So again, always something to go for here as a plan B. Wonderfully illustrated, lovely flow, only about 20 minutes to play, and yeah, it ticks all the boxes what I want from a filler game, and has quickly actually risen my personal ranks when it comes to the best filler games out there. Every single play I enjoy that a little bit more. So that is Floriferous, a well-deserved number 1. So that concludes the top 10 games. I just want to give a few honourable mentions. Ship Shape very narrowly missed out on the top 10. Number 9 was another one, a nice little puzzly tile placement game. Suro, Micro Macro, Crime City. Triggs is a nice little flip and write game that just feels so low stakes, but it's a lot of fun. And Fantasy Realms was one that I considered as well, because I've noticed when I play Fantasy Realms, I don't really care what anyone else is doing. I'm just trying to do what I can with the cards that I have, whether that be a good arrangement of cards or a bad one. I don't really care. It just feels like it's just a little thing that I'm trying to map out in my head and just do my best that I can. But there's just a few more examples there. Now, hopefully you have enjoyed the video. If you have, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And for everybody else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye-bye.